Hi folks, and thanks for joining me. You can see I've got a little RCA Victor Bakelite cabinet here in front of me from around 1949. Anyway, my plans have changed. I had prepared to do the cabinet work on the Crosley 718 next. I'm actually mending from a nasty kind of head first fall on concrete. So fortunately I've got my movement back in my left hand. The bruising is gone and just a little bit of soreness there, the ribs, but the back is all twisted and out of alignment. So hopefully in about 6 weeks from now, after some therapy 2 to 3 times a week, I'll kind of get back to a normal routine. Then we'll try to get the Crosley refinishing complete, then get that chassis back in. Anyway, this particular radio, you can see, has got a maroon finish on it. Pretty cool. Again, from around 1949, I believe. And doing some research on this particular model, the 8X541, there was also a 542 and a 547. The 547 was white. It was more rare, is my understanding, than this particular one. And then the 8X542 was rare as well. It was an ivory color, but I think this was the most common. I picked this thing up, just going back and looking, I think I was in just north of Atlanta, in Woodstock, Georgia, and picked this thing up somewhere in that area for about $25 back in the 1990 period or so, 92, 93. But probably overpaid for it back then, but I was just kind of getting into the hobby and had an interest in starting in radios and stuff that were more of a simpler design. So this being an All-American 5, which we'll take a look at the tube complement in just a moment. You can see though the cabinet here is in great shape, and the dial moves freely, and the volume control. And I'm pretty sure I powered this thing up many years ago, or at least I think I did. And I think the case, you can see I've already cleaned it up, and I had it in storage, so I just kind of dusted it off. It's got a few little small imperfections in it, but overall the Bakelite is in good shape here. This thing uses a 4-inch PM speaker that we'll look at in just a minute, and it should tune from about 540 to 1600 kilocycles. Operates about 115 volts is the way it was designed. Of course, AC or DC back in the day. And of course you had to have the correct polarity of your power plug here as well to make it operate correctly. You can see it's a non-polarized plug. We'll flip it around here in just a moment and look at the rear of it. A common 455 kilocycle IF frequency, and I think the output is somewhere probably around 1 watt to 1.5 watt output, which was common. You can see there's some gold leaf behind the dial. It's a little frayed, but I don't think it's bad enough that I'm going to mess with doing anything. I was looking at some of the service notes for this radio. It was talking about, just like many radios for the period, that your dress lead is very critical to keeping hum in check. So we'll pay close attention to that if we have to do any rewiring or reposition any of the existing components once we get in here. And one thing I thought we would do after we get this thing recapped and new resistors as needed, we'll kind of take it through a test drive, and we'll look and see if we can identify the gain per stage, and see how that kind of bumps up against the schematic, if I'm able to do that just using my signal tracer. Flip this thing around, you can see the side of it's in great shape here, and the back is loose. The clips here, I'm actually missing one clip And I think the others just need to be kind of straightened out in the back. Here's a little warped, which was not uncommon. And again, I had already mentioned it's got the original line cord here, you can see, non-polarized. Again, I think I can substitute or pick up some spring clips. I've seen others do that, and I may actually have some that I bought many years ago in a little small hiding spot if I can actually locate those. Let's get this thing out of the case here and just take a look at the chassis real quick, see what kind of condition I left this thing in. I think I'll just go ahead and cut these connections here. And a good look here at the loop antenna and the clips themselves. And there's a look at like the gold foil that's a little frayed. I may look at putting another piece in there or just let that be. And it looks like two more fasteners here around the loudspeaker itself. I had mentioned I had this thing in storage and had it wrapped up in bubble wrap, so you can see it's still clean from inside where I cleaned the case back a number of years ago. And here's a look at the chassis itself. Looks like I did some cleaning on it as well at some point. Not in real bad shape. And it's like I cleaned the tubes as well. Loudspeaker seems to be intact, so we'll cover it up. And again, a very simple design, being an All-American 5. So very few capacitors and very few resistors that we'll have to take a look at replacing. And the electrolytic here for the power supply itself. So a pretty straightforward design with the pilot lamp here. And you can see this has been worked on in the past, just looking at the various capacitors in here. You've got Sprague here, and of course this definitely does not look like the original electrolytic as well, and maybe some of these wax caps are. Resistors look to be probably the original resistors for the period. So we'll pull these tubes out in just a bit. So in no particular order, you can see again the tuning condenser here. It seemed to rotate freely, so no issues there. The loudspeaker, just at a glance, looks good aesthetically. And then the tube complement here, it's a 12SA7, a 12SK7, a 12SQ7, a 50L6 for the audio output, and the rectifier being a 35Z5, and of course the little output transformer here as well. And the two IFs here at 455. I'll look at the service notes here and take note of this particular chassis number as well, RC 10651 it appears. See if there's anything that's called out that makes this unique. are different than some of the other builds. So pretty straightforward, folks. I just wanted to introduce this one, and if I continue to feel well enough to sit on my rump for an hour or so, I'll get out here and start replacing some caps, checking resistors, and just make sure that the loudspeaker's good and we've got good IFs, and do some other basic tests, and then we'll take a look at some of the circuit on the schematic as well. Maybe look at some of the stages and how the radio performs, starting at the antenna section all the way back through to the loudspeaker itself. You guys take care, and I hope to be back sometime soon.